Good morning, Excellencies. His Excellency Mr. Walton Alfonso Webson, Permanent Representative of Antigua and Barbuda to the UN, UN Under-Secretary General and Executive Director of UN Women, Ms. Seema Bahous, Assistant Secretary General of UN Global Compact, Sanda Ojiambo, Deputy Executive Director of UN Women, Kirsi Mahdi, Deputy Vice Chairs of the Unstereotype Alliance, our keynote speaker, Ms. June Ambrose, global and national chapter members of the Unstereotype Alliance, distinguished guests, colleagues, and those joining virtually via live stream, welcome to the Unstereotype Alliance Global Member Summit 2024. My name is Sarah Denby. I'm the head of the Unstereotype Alliance Secretariat here at UN Women, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the United Nations headquarters here in New York City. As is our tradition, this morning is an open plenary session where we set the global context for the next 2 days of summit discussions for our members, share our progress as an alliance, and provide inspiration for addressing some of the challenges that we will tackle together. Today, we're in the Trusteeship Council chamber here at UN headquarters, which is a suitably fitting environment, as you'll note the egalitarian design of the room that quite deliberately has all members on the same level. It is described as an inclusive room that facilitates communication and dialogue on human rights and fundamental freedoms. It therefore seems a most appropriate space to commence our 2 days of discussion in this quite pivotal moment of the Unstereotype Alliance. For those who are not familiar, the Unstereotype Alliance is a thought and action program convened by UN Women that engages the global advertising industry to eradicate all harmful stereotypes from advertising and media content. We do this because stereotypes are a pervasive and destructive force that create a barrier to progress in any society, particularly when it comes to gender equality. So we leverage the reach, impact, and influence of advertising to push for positive representation and equality for all. Since the inception of the Alliance in 2017, there has been extraordinary growth and achievements, some of which you will hear this morning via inspiring speakers from across the UN, the Unstereotype Alliance membership, and distinguished guests. The first of these esteemed speakers is the UN Under-Secretary General and Executive Director of UN Women, Seema Bahous. As the ED is also chair of the Unstereotype Alliance, it is my great pleasure to invite her to the stage to deliver the opening address. Ms. Seema Bahous.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here and great to see you all here with us. Excellencies, His Excellency Mr. Walton Alfonso Webson, Permanent Representative of Antigua and Barbuda to the United Nations, Her Excellency Ms. Sanda Ojiambo, Assistant Secretary General, United Nations Global Compact, my good friend, Deputy Vice Chairs, our keynote speaker, Ms. June Ambrose, global and national chapter members of the Unstereotype Alliance, distinguished guests, and everyone present. It is an honor to welcome you all to this 2024 edition of the Unstereotype Alliance Global Members Summit. When we met last at the 2022 summit, I was inspired. I was moved by the commitment of our members and by your unwavering commitment to driving positive social change through the power and reach of your work. We challenged ourselves as an alliance to raise the bar, and we marked that moment as a springboard for action in pushing for positive social norms everywhere, and you have achieved much since then. Yet today, 2 years later, I wish I could tell you that our work is done. But despite global efforts, we are falling short of achieving gender equality. In fact, if current gender equality trends remain the same, over 340 million women and girls will live in extreme poverty by 2030. 1 in 4 will experience moderate to severe food insecurity. The next generation of women will still spend, on average, 2.3 more hours per day on unpaid care and domestic work than men. The number of women and girls living in crisis-affected countries has doubled from 2017 to 2022. The humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan is intrinsically linked with the women's rights crisis. The overwhelming number of people killed in Gaza are women and children. In Haiti, in Myanmar, the Sahel, Sudan, South Sudan, and elsewhere across the globe, women bear the brunt of conflicts they did not start. Gender inequality, coupled with the climate crisis, remains one of the greatest challenges of our time. So, dear friends and dear colleagues, inequality, discrimination, and harmful stereotypes are what fuel all these crises. At UN Women, we know that where there is inequality, there is discrimination. Where there are power imbalances, there is violence. Where there is exclusion, there is poverty of every kind. There is an urgency to change how we see each other and to build on our communities so that they are all represented with respect and empowered to live their lives with dignity. This is why the agenda of this Unstereotype Alliance is so critical. As an alliance mandated to challenge negative stereotypes and promote positive social norms, you continue to empower people in all their diversity, including gender, race, class, age, disability, ethnicity, religion, and sexual orientation. You do that through positive representation and progressive portrayals that shape perceptions around the world. You have the power to show the world alternatives, to eliminate fears of diverse communities, to depict the positive power of inclusion. The advertising industry, and this alliance in particular, has unrivaled reach and influence, with a cumulative spend across this membership of over $500 billion last year to eliminate the stereotypes from these messages. We see the good when we do this, and we know the harm when we do not. Colleagues, friends, partners, at UN Women, we believe in partnerships, and as the theme of this Global Member Summit suggests, we want to underscore the power of our collective force when we stand together. I am pleased to report that our Unstereotype Alliance has remained on the steady path of growth, both in terms of numbers as well as impact. The current membership of the 240 organizations and 12 national chapters across continents is something to celebrate. From Turkey to Brazil, from South Africa to the United Arab Emirates, we see an industry moving towards more inclusive advertising that embraces progressive imagery and representation of all people. And this matters. It perhaps matters now more than ever. While we celebrate our wins, we must also acknowledge the pushback. Our affirmative action policies are now deemed by opponents as reverse discrimination. Gender equality gains we took for granted are now being reversed. At the core of this pushback lies fear, the fear of those who have held the reins for so long on dominant power structures that benefit them. As women, we decided many decades ago to push forward through this pushback. Now you must too. We cannot give up in the face of the global rollback of women's rights and our efforts to ensure that all can avail of their human rights. Allow me to close with the 3 action points. First, invest in women. In a world that it is in urgent need of solutions, there is no more powerful force multiplier, no higher return on investment than the pursuit of gender equality. Next month's International Women's Day and the subsequent Commission on the Status of Women are aimed at emphasizing the critical actions required to bridge the existing gaps, which is why the 2024 International Women's Day theme is Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress. Second, amplify youth voices, from fighting against bias and discrimination to advocating for climate action. Young people are at the forefront of some of the biggest battles of our time, pushing to make the future better for everyone. And third, commit to accountability. At this summit, we will introduce a charter of accountability across the Alliance to act as a roadmap with clear benchmarks against which members will be asked to report progress on an annual basis. The call to join us in our fight to push back against the gender equality pushback might feel overwhelming, but so were the environmental, social, and governance measures 2 decades ago. The environmental, social, and governance measures, strategies were seen as woke, mission creep by many private sector organizations. But today, they are seen for what they are, a crucial crisis prevention strategy. I urge you to fight for gender equality with the same sense of urgency, the same commitment, and the same investments. As UN Women, I can assure you we will double your actions. Friends and partners, we need the powerful voices of your industry. We need the power of your storytelling. We need you to be bold and creative as we together push back against the gender equality pushback and push diversity forward. I thank you all for being here and for your continued work and wish you a very productive summit, and I thank you.
Thank you so much, ED, for providing that thought-provoking context for our discussions this morning and a very powerful call to action and a great summary of our agenda for the next 2 days. Thank you. Throughout this morning and the next 2 days of Summit for our members, I will guide you through a rich and empowering agenda of conversations, and I'll be supported by my team, as well as the wonderful Jess Weiner, CEO of Talk to Jess. Jess is a cultural expert and brand advisor who has spent 3 decades educating and speaking on cultural trends and media representation in order to help people feel more seen, heard, and understood. She is also a founding ally of the Unstereotype Alliance and a great friend to us all. Please welcome Jess Weiner.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Sarah. Good morning. It's so good to see you again and to see new faces as well. I have the lovely opportunity this morning to do a lot of housekeeping and information necessary to make our time together very successful. But first, I want to say welcome to everybody this morning, and our membership now spans across 16 countries, and we're really able to open the doors this morning to the open plenary session and sharing it on our live stream as well. The theme, as you heard the ED say, for the next 2 days is the power of our collective impact and the need to continue to power forward. You're going to hear very explicitly why this is our theme right now and why and how we're going to work together to eliminate the harmful stereotypes from advertising and media to create a more equitable world. In fact, I had to rock my I Dream of Gender Equity hair for today. And I'm so happy that I'm in a room full of people who understand that reference. I'll explain it to my Gen Z team later. Okay, I'm going to be sharing MC duties today with Sarah Denby, the head of the Unstereotype Alliance Secretariat at UN Women. And first, though, let me go over a few house rules for today. We are here together for the next 3 hours, but if you do need restrooms, they are up the stairs and to the left. Those are the only doors to access in and out of the room today. This is called the Trusteeship Council Chamber, and we do not have access to the second floor, so we're going to encourage you to go up and out those doors and to the restrooms if you need it, and we have ushers standing by to help guide you in that right direction. Please don't lose your pass. That's really important that you keep it with you at all times, as well as your identification documents. And note that, of course, smoking is prohibited throughout the building, and food or drink is not permitted inside the chamber. Although water is fine, we need you hydrated as we answer these calls of action today. And as I mentioned, while you're inside the Trusteeship Council chamber, your microphones have been turned off just to manage the chaos a bit. So, and because COVID is still a real thing, if you start to feel unwell, please do make your way out and let an usher know if you need any assistance. And of course, if you happen to test positive for COVID after the summit, please inform us and let us know. And for those of you who are guests today, hello up there, who are joining us for the plenary session this morning, please do stop by the public lobby for a selfie on your way out, and you can tag the Unstereotype Alliance. I think we're going to throw up our hashtags. And then for members that are staying with us, never fear, we always have room and time for selfies. So there will be lots of opportunities to take photos with your new favorite besties in the fight for gender equity. And then finally this morning, as I mentioned, we're being live streamed on UN TV and on the Unstereotype Alliance channel on YouTube, so go ahead and add that to your favorites. And while the cameras will be focused on the speakers today, you'll have an opportunity to watch it again and, of course, to share that link with your colleagues after the event. Woo! All right, those are all the housekeeping rules, so let's move on with the program. We have a fantastic agenda this morning that we're hoping and we know will inspire action over the next couple of days. And really this morning we wanted to ground us in the bigger picture, the real global context of the Unstereotype Alliance, which we heard so beautifully articulated this morning by ED, and the critical role that your partnership plays in the initiatives that help to drive and sustain our fight for equity. As you saw, the Unstereotype Alliance is led by our incredible ED, Seema Bahous, as chair. And during the course of the morning, you're going to hear a number of recorded messages from 3 vice chairs of the Unstereotype Alliance. Heinz Schumacher, the CEO of Unilever, Andrew Clark, the global president of Mars, and Philippe Krakowski, CEO of IPG. But before we get into the detail of the collective impact of the Alliance and how we're all going to plan to power forward, the ED already acknowledged the importance the UN places on partnering with businesses in the private sector and the critical role that we all play in helping to champion and drive social change. So to explain a little bit more about that, it is my pleasure to introduce the Assistant Secretary General of the UN Global Compact, Sanda Ojiambo. Welcome.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. Dear excellencies in the room, business leaders, colleagues, and friends. First, let me thank the ED of the UN Women, Seema Bahous, for this very kind invitation. It's always great to be in the presence of the incredible work that UN Women does and your vision and ambition as well. And to the Unstereotype Alliance, really great to be with you. Thank you also for the invitation to join you. I have to say, a few years ago, I actually worked in a corporate company that was part of the Unstereotype Alliance before I came over to the UN. So it's good to see the growth, good to hear of the growth of the chapters, and really great to see you all in this room. Also incredible to hear the progress that has been made, as well as your ambitions around raising the bar on the work that you do. So before I start, I thought I'd reflect on a couple of cultural or global happenings over the weekend. I don't know where you were, but I certainly heard that it was a great sporting weekend. And I'm going to use this as an analogy because I think it's an opportunity. And these are the opportunities that we must seize when the world comes together. I'll preface it by saying I'm Kenyan. Kenyans are known for athletics. I'm not necessarily a runner, but I also, took immense, should I say, pleasure and curiosity in watching how sports unites the world. And I'm going to phrase that and just look at that as I kick off my comments. So what a sporting weekend it was. For those in the US and beyond, I hear the Super Bowl attracted over $123.7 million, with 30-second ads costing about $7 million to air. Opportunity costs were high, but the potential reach was definitely unprecedented. On the other side of the world, the Africa Cup of Nations, AFCON, concluded this past weekend, attracting 2 billion viewers throughout the month-long tournament. Both of these opportunities presented amazing opportunities and gains for advertisers, for advocates, and for messaging, and for really drawing attention to messages that are critical to the crises that Seema highlighted and the opportunities that we must seize. And as big as these events are, there are arguably fewer moments in the world that bring the world together anymore. It's something that we rarely see. Amidst these troubled times of conflict, of COVID, of climate, of the rising cost of capital that always adversely affect women and girls more. But when the world does come together in a positive way, perhaps often really limited to few experiences such as sport, advertising and the work that you do has the awesome ability to show up. And maybe some of you in this room are behind some of those great advertising moments. I don't know. But I imagine that all of us here spend time thinking about how we can collectively get more unstereotyped thinking at these and other big moments. When we have the opportunity to focus hearts, minds, leadership, financing, innovation, and communication to focus more on the issues of sustainable development, of inclusivity, of rights, of equality and equity, things that are so important to us. And there's no doubt that the Alliance is deeply committed to giving dignity to the portrayal of humanity beyond the stereotypes. I think Seema highlighted the progress over the past years, but also how much more we do need to do. That giving of dignity lies at the heart of the work that we do at the UN Global Compact as well. Formed just over 25 years ago with a strong call to action for business leaders and leaders like yourselves to join governments and civil society to put a human face to the global market. And if we close our eyes for just a minute, it would be great to know what you see as the human face. Wherever we sit, wherever we stand, that human face varies. But those are the faces that we want to be sure that we can protect, that we can elevate, and that we can give dignity to. Today, the Global Compact, and pleased to say I know that some of you are members of the Compact, has 20,000 global companies worldwide committed to responsible, sustainable, and inclusive business practices. And indeed, media and advertising companies are so critical to this movement. And your commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and generally giving dignity to humanity is such a vital contributor to our goals. But what we know is that business cannot succeed when the world around it is failing. So think about this world. A world where women have a seat at the table and can earn equal pay for equal work. A world where workers can earn not just a minimum wage, but a living wage. A world where young people are assured of a sustainable future. And in essence, a world that is inclusive, just, and fair. Just at halfway point of the 2030 agenda, we're only on track to achieve 15% of the Sustainable Development Goals. The world we want is slipping out of reach. And it's important to note that at the current trajectory, there's many multiples of many different ways that this expression has been set. It'll take 169 years for women to achieve full economic empowerment, but every single effort that we can make towards reducing that gap matters. And as half the planet prepares to choose new leaders in 2024, trust is in short supply. How we see each other, how we are portrayed by gender, by race, by age, by ability, by intellect, even by accent, impacts trust. And your industry plays such an important role in shaping perception and ultimately shaping trust. Trust is the currency that will get us through democratic transitions peacefully. Trust is the currency that will allow us to vote. Trust is a currency that will allow candidates to stand up and share their views. And your industry will play an important role in shaping those perceptions and that trust. CEOs from around the world that we talk to at the Global Compact tell us that in this day and age, global issues that traditionally lie outside the corporate sphere, that lie outside their P&L, is what keeps them awake most at night. So CEOs are worried about public health and pandemics. They're worried about human rights. They're worried about conflict and transition. They're worried about issues that they never really had to worry about when they were in business school. And this truly is putting the CEO in a new lane and a new realm of what corporate leadership looks like. And perhaps many of you in the room will identify with that. And all of that is compounded in an era where technology is moving much faster than institutions and perhaps our very linear brains and ways of thinking. AI, as we know, can be harnessed to help us work a lot quicker with more accuracy and more insight towards delivering on your work, on business, and certainly on the global goals. But of course, and lots of discussion going on within the UN on this, it's important to be sure that we have governance that can collectively create access, equity, inclusivity, and mitigate the growing risks to business, ethics, and development. So where do we go from here? There's a lot on every CEO's plate, but there's also equally so much opportunity that we can collectively seize. The truth is, there's no one company, no one sector, no industry, no economy, and no single government that can solve the challenges that we face or seize the opportunities that we must. Moving forward, and it's great that you're convening here at the UN, we're so much stronger when we work together, even across industries. And that's why your alliance is so impactful. The UN calls for a stronger multi-stakeholder, multilateralist framework that brings together all entities and all sectors of society, from business to local governments, universities, grassroots movements, global leadership, to really rally forward for the Sustainable Development Goals. The private sector and your industry, of course, has such a crucial role to play by sustaining markets, growing economies, contributing to national and regional development, but most importantly, shaping how we see each other as individuals and giving dignity to humanity through this very important work that you do. So I'd just like to take a moment while I'm here to talk about some of the work we're doing at the Global Compact and our Forward Faster initiative. Those who are members will have heard for it. We're calling companies to set much higher ambition levels around gender equality and inclusivity, because we need ambition in the corporate sector, and we need you to all take the charge and move forward. Truly excited to be here and join the conversation today. But as I reflect on many years ago when I sat perhaps in a company wondering where the Alliance was going, it's a true honor to see this growth. But also as I reflect on this weekend, I think about the opportunities that we must seize to bring the world together to give dignity to humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Now I'm so excited to introduce to you our first keynote speaker, and then I will join her in a little conversation afterwards. June Ambrose is a creative icon and style architect, and she's been called the godmother of hip-hop style. Her culture-shifting work has made her something of a music industry unicorn, with visual narratives and costume design that have defined a generation. For over 30 years, she has collaborated with some of the world's biggest brands, challenging stereotypes and breaking boundaries. Her advocacy for women of color and underrepresented and underserved communities remains at the epicenter and heart of her platform. And her impact in business and culture remains grounded in inclusion. And before we hear from June, we got a little sizzle, so let's take a look.
I'm June Ambrose.
June Ambrose.
It's June Ambrose.
Legendary costume designer, award-winning creative director, Miss June Ambrose!
Backdrop of my life growing up in the Bronx, the birthplace of hip-hop, was such a great gift. I'm 30 years in the business next year. The video with Jay-Z, I designed a linen yellow suit. We wore it with sneakers because we wanted it to feel very disruptive. Brazen and I was bold and I was very unapologetic. I am a storyteller. I believe in this is the way that we shift the narrative. Mm-hmm. This is the way we can show that our value. It's the way that we've been able to convey culturally throughout the years. Just put, looks to the lyrics. Style is a lifestyle. It's not just about what you wear, but how you gather people, how you entertain. You're the woman that we wanted to see. That's why we did what we did, so we can give you the space to be creatively and authentically yourself. We had to be impactful. We had to be intentional. Fashion is mute without style. It's the way that we communicate and convey who we are and who we want to become. And style is emotional. It's not just physical. It's a conversation.
Everybody, please welcome the incredible June Ambrose.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am humbled and honored to stand before you today at the request of Unstereotype Alliance and UN Women. Thank you for inviting me to speak and be part of such an amazing cause. I am filled with passion to be here to address topics that have been at the heart of my career. I've always strived to dismantle barriers and challenge outdated norms because I believe that there is an indispensable need for authentic representation in the media. When I began working in fashion with musical artists from this niche subculture called hip-hop, we had to push for acceptance. We had to create doors where there were none. We had to be resolute in our mission and putting looks to the lyrics and creating visuals provocative enough to get attention without compromising the integrity of the art and message. Audiences began to take notice and started to see us the way we see ourselves, as artists. We used fashion as a vehicle of translation. It both disguised and punctuated our message. And then slowly, through authentic storytelling, aspirational partnerships, and working with genuine allies, we turned hip-hop to hip-pop. And the genre became the most popular genre of music today. Stereotypes stand as obstacles in our path, hindering our ability to authentically connect with audiences and reflect the true breadth of human experience. And yet, we as progressive brands and creators have the power to challenge these barriers head on. With curiosity as our compass, we can shatter stereotypes and illuminate multifaceted natures of identity. By daring to ask questions, to listen intently, and to learn from those whose voices have long been silenced, we pave the way for a more inclusive media landscape. We are the leaders on the inside, the architects of culture within our organizations. Culture is not merely a concept. It's the very fabric of the workplace environment, woven together by the collective attitudes, values, and behaviors of every individual. If your culture is progressive, if it thrives on inclusivity, innovation, and authenticity, then you hold the power to catalyze transformative change within a wider industry. I encourage us to be disruptive. in our approach, boldly challenging the status quo, refusing to settle for the superficial representation. I have cultivated pathways for change alongside esteemed partners such as Adidas, Target, Macy's, Le Mer, Puma, and numerous others. Together, we have forged opportunities that resonate with women and diverse audiences, ensuring that every facet of our community finds authentic representation and connection in stories we tell and campaigns that we build and promote. This is my 30th year as a business owner, storyteller, creative director, and connector. And I believe that we all share a similar goal, which is to build a meaningful legacy, a legacy that's defined by the lives of things that we touch and the stories that we amplify. All of us in this room are relentless in our pursuit of authenticity, for it is the pursuit that we leave an indelible mark on the world. So, I hope this conversation encourages us all to stand together, united in our commitment to authentic representation and storytelling, fearless in the face of adversity, unwavering in our dedication to progress, and together, let us create a world where barriers are broken, stereotypes are shattered, and every voice is heard. Thank you.
And you have the ability to use your voice. You talk to me about often being the only one, the only woman, the only black woman. Mm-hmm. Can we talk about what you've seen and experienced behind closed doors and what you've done to change and transform those conversations when you've had a chance?
Yeah. I think I've always stood on integrity and what I knew was the right thing to do, to be fearless enough to speak for those who couldn't speak. And that takes courage, and I recognized that I was going to have to be as fearless as a lion in the jungle, because sometimes that's what it felt like. But I recognized that we had the ability to not feed into the norm. And when I started working in the music industry, in the fashion industry, fashion houses weren't readily opening doors for us. The genre of music was somewhat alternative and considered secular, so that wasn't the interest. I had to create a new conversation, create a new narrative. And with the power of doing that, you recognize, okay, this could work. And you're creating a culture where you're bringing others along the way with you. And through design, I was able to change that narrative and allow the world to see us the way we saw ourselves. So I didn't create based on the current situation. I created on where I wanted it to be and where I wanted it to go. And you're in the driver's seat, so I recognized that I had the ability to do that through fashion and style.
And I'm curious in the journey along the way, when you present the new vision, when you say, here's something I'm imagining, this is something I want to bring to life, and you experience pushback, which you must have.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the fun in it all. That's the sport, right? I mean,
Yes.
With every no, there's a yes. I'm very relentless.
Me too.
And I don't take things personal. And I think when you recognize, my favorite line is good things happen to good people. And whenever things are going off the rails, I'm always like, I stand on the loins knowing that I'm a good person, that my intentions are pure, and that they may not understand it in the moment, but because I'm forecasting where I want it to be, you have to trust me. And I think when you're intentional, when you make eye contact, and when you speak with confidence, and you don't waver because you're being gaslit, and that happens quite often where we get so exhausted by the no's or the pushbacks, and we start to take it personal. So I always remove myself from it in that way and say, this isn't about me. Let me help this person navigate through this, help them to understand. Because fear comes from a place of ignorance. So if you're pushing back on something that I've fully worked out in my head and that I know that is worth fighting for, then I stick with it. Sometimes you have to compromise. Mm-hmm. But with every compromise, there's a strategy. Yes. And, sometimes you say, okay, flag down, but I'm going to still come back to fight. I've been there.
I think you're sitting in and amongst a room of people who all share the thick skin that is required to do this work. But I'm curious, you've created your own industry, you've worked within industry. So I want to talk about the entrepreneurship that happens for those who work within a corporate structure or within a system that may face headwinds. A big theme that we're going to be covering throughout this work as we talk about how to power forward is actually how to face the backlash and the headwinds that we may be experiencing in this work, especially right now in this year. So I'm curious if you can speak about what specifically helps an individual here to be an entrepreneur in their role, to be challenging that, even if they don't have the position of power right now that they may desire. How do they create those allyships and advocates that you say are so important for us?
One at a time. Sometimes you don't get the luxury of speaking to a group, but you find that ally in the room, and whether it's a whisper or a note and knowledge that you're sharing, they take that and they become your bullhorn. And then you start to grow the culture within. You think it's like a covert operation, in a sense. I'm always covertly operating. And I'm a listener, too. I think it's important that you listen so that, and I'm so infinitely curious. So I'm always asking questions. And I think when you're sitting at a place, well, tell me, or you seem like you don't really understand, you are allowing the opposition a chance to explain why they feel the way they feel about something, without being patronizing, but being curious. And I think curiosity really helps to onboard people that really have something to say, but you also have something to say, too. It's just how you start a conversation. Right. It's like, oh, that's a great lip gloss. Tell me so. Right. You know what I mean? It's just, it could be very as natural as that, right?
Yeah. Well, this kind of brings up our shared background as theater kids. So I do think coming from that creative background helps to teach a lot of great principles of improvisation. And one of those is the yes and approach, right? Exactly. You validate what's happening in the moment and you build to something else. And I use that quite a bit in my work.
It was the best advice that was ever given through my drama teacher. He always said, become... don't act, become the part. And we can't just be actors. We have to believe in the characters that we're playing with integrity, because that character is the one that's going to lead for a standing ovation. And whenever I go into a situation, I have to become, knowing that I've done my research and I've become very connected to this individual.
And as you've been building and strategizing and building the allyship and partners, one person at a time, I also just really want to take a moment to say, I understand the weight that you can feel being that one voice in a room. And I think for those that are now maybe afraid to speak up in those rooms, how can they creatively, I guess what I'm curious about is how can they creatively show up in those spaces? And then if they need to, do they need to process afterwards with friends and family? Because you must need to have a set of resources, because how do you not take personally, right? When you're talking, for an example, about gender equity and the pushback or the gaslighting or the feedback is a diminishing of the need for that, which I've sat in rooms and heard before. I'm sure many of us had, right? And so I'm curious how you, summon that courage and curiosity, and what you would advise somebody to do who might need to process that stuff when they're done with that meeting.
I was a very precocious young lady, and I always asked my young self, please don't be afraid. Remind me, because as children, we don't, our stakes aren't as high. We have people taking care of us, so we're not as afraid as we are as adults. And I always ask my young self, give me the courage to ask for this. Give me the courage to, to want to touch the fire knowing that it's hot. And that really gives me so much steam. And also just being still and giving myself grace in a moment where things may have gotten misunderstood, knowing that my intentions were good, and being able to address those intentions and not letting them sit for them to be misconstrued. So I always like to, whenever there's a misunderstanding, I like to address it right away. And I like to educate the person on why I said something. I mean, now with social media, so many of us don't have an opportunity to do that. But when you're given an opportunity to speak your piece, I think you take it.
Yeah. In talking to you about the creation of things that were not there, let's talk about hip-hop as a genre and the bridge that you built and the world that you created into high fashion, high culture, the ability to put this into the mainstream in such significant ways. Can you identify, as you look back or think about like a moment where your curiosity kind of unlocked for you something in that journey, and kind of the headwinds you might have been facing, and then how that curiosity unlocked to get people on board to build what you built?
It was the muses and the allies, I think. You find your ally in every space, in every room, and you hang on to them. And I remember having that one person at one of the big fashion houses giving me a shot, but it was after we had painted a picture that was attractive to them. So you have to recognize that some things you don't have to ask for permission for. And most of the things I accomplished, I didn't ask for permission. I was rogue in my approach. Because if I sat back and asked for the narrative of the face of hip-hop to change, it may not have, because you're thinking about young people who are coming from different circumstances that were already kind of predisposed to them. Oh, this person grew up in this environment. This is what's naturally predisposed to them. And I never, that was not what I used as the inspiration. What I used as the inspiration was the dreams. And I dream with my eyes open all the time. And because of that, I can see things very clear. And it's almost euphoric. As I always say, I build heaven on earth. And I'll move heaven on earth to get through something that I really, truly believe is the right thing to do. And when I look at the results of what has happened to the culture and how it is, it's such a popular culture and it's such a fearless and brazen culture, because it's something that we continue to communicate. Yeah. And we believed that this is, like when people say, adjust your invisible crown, right. It's like they no longer have to be invisible.
I love the statement, dreaming with your eyes open. I think that's also a really wonderful thing for us to take with us into these conversations. So I'm curious what you might say to somebody listening in the room today or through the live stream who, in all compassionate situations, are feeling a little burned out right now about the work that they're doing to champion inclusion, or they're curious if these headwinds are going to knock them over or if they're going to have any setbacks. I'm curious, what you might offer to somebody who is a little exhausted for doing that. What advice, what kind of pep talk might you offer them?
Change is exhausting. Don't give up. When I was working at Puma, the Title IX was something that I really, I'm entering a space of sport, and we had to create, life is a sport, and we all want to play to win. And you try to shape the conversation to where it's applicable to you and the things that you're trying to say. And you have to keep people honest. You have to remind them of something they said 20 and 50 and 100 years ago. And it's like, tuning up a car.
Yeah.
You have to go in for service. You have to constantly remind them, this needs maintenance. And everything that we're fighting for will continue to need maintenance. It will continue to need to be tuned up. Continue to keep those who made promises honest. Yeah. Keep their foot to the fire. Don't give up. And encourage and employ the next generation to champion along with you. I have 2 young kids, and I'm constantly reminding them of their responsibilities socially, and how important it is and how much power they have now, more so than I did coming into my career. I mean, technology and AI is really going to change the fabric of how we communicate. Yes. So how do we do that? We do that by learning, by addressing it, acknowledging it, and partnering with it. And I partner with the next generation. I partner with my allies. I partner with my enemies, and I keep them close so that we can continue to make shake things up and make things right.
Let's end on that next generation note as we dream with our eyes open and you have a chance to talk to future creatives about how they can also create doors and open doors where there were none open. What advice would you give somebody now creatively dreaming with their eyes open for a world in which we continue to unstereotype the advertising, the media, the marketing, the workforce out there?
Where you can be disruptive, continue to be disruptive. Where you can walk into a space and see things that don't look like the world you live in, adjust it. You know, the way you fix your clothes, you know, fix the space. You know, we are all in charge. We're all CEOs of our lives. So when you talk about being internally, externally, I've always moved as, you know, with a CEO mentality. And I think when you encourage others to have that kind of energy as well, you create leaders within subcultures of places where you feel like you can't be. And I've worked on the inside. I've worked in corporate America. I stepped outside of that. I took a leap of faith and started something new. So I say that the things that you want in life, sometimes, you know, you wait for it to be given to you, but sometimes you have to create it. And that part is actually quite euphoric and beautiful. If you get butterflies and you're nervous about it, it's because change is coming. It's because you're about to fall in love. So I say, hold on to that feeling on this beautiful day that we celebrate love. Know that that is the sign of something really beautiful to come.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your contribution to our culture. And thank you for those really dope hats.
Thank you. Trade secret. When I'm not wearing heels, it becomes my height. How to manipulate fashion to make it your own.
That's where you're hiding your crown. That's what I know for sure. All right, fantastic. We're going to take a short break, but we wanted to share with you some opportunities to hear some stories from around the world and to give you the flavor and the taste of these amazing 12 national chapters as they develop and implement work on their local level. Our very first national chapter, we'll have you know, launched in Brazil in 2019, and it's about to celebrate their 5th year anniversary. So take a look, and I'm sure you can agree that we have achieved some wonderful things in changing the face of the ad industry. Thank you, June.
Thank you.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor for me to join you as part of the Unstereotype Alliance Global Summit. Special thank you to Her Excellency, Sima Sami Braha, for inviting me, and to the members for the important work that you do. As you gather here today at the summit, I'm reminded of my own journey in breaking stereotypes and the imperative role we all play in reshaping societal narratives through the mediums of advertising, TV, and film. As a woman of color in an industry often criticized for its lack of diversity,
gente aprende.
Welcome to the Global Member Summit of the Unstereotype Alliance. If you're here, it means that you're someone who believes that unstereotyped living makes it better. You also believe in this organization's core mission, which is to work across the marketing industry as a collective force for good, pushing for progress and holding ourselves and each other accountable for driving positive social change. The Alliance is now in its 6th year, having launched 12 national chapters across 5 continents. As a founding member and vice chair, I've also seen us establish a foundation for an evidence-based approach as we work together to eliminate stereotypes across the industry landscape. This important work wouldn't be possible without the commitment of all the individuals and organizations that make up our community. During the platinum anniversary celebration last year, a real point of pride for many of us is to see the unstereotyped criteria included as part of the judging process account for relevant key festivals that we work to create. This is important because it speaks to the way in which the Alliance is driving change on deep or systemic level. Next on the path towards greater impact is the first ever Charter of Accountability, which is going to ensure all of our being measured in ways that are consistent and also fully aligned with the sustainability of our business. Let's all try to lean in and do what we can to secure deep and broad support for this accountability. The Unstereotype Alliance reminds us that we can't lose focus on any link in the creative value chain. At IPG, we long been committed to creating a diverse, inclusive workplace and culture that's built on fairness and equity. And as we often say, those who do the work show up in it. It's this commitment to people that's allowed us to produce work that's culturally relevant, reflective of the world we live in, and impactful in the market on behalf of our customers. As we gather today to reflect on all of the Alliance has accomplished, let's also be sure to focus on areas where there are still gaps and needs that we have to address. This is going to allow us to move forward together, continue to transform the way
Hello again. We're back after that break. Thank you so much to the amazing June Ambrose and, of course, our good friend Jess Weiner for what was such an enlightening and inspiring interview. And I'm quite sure we were all typing some of those quotes into our phones. It was just a fantastic insight into the world of hip-hop, but also the incredibly inspiring world of creativity. And now, colleagues, it's my great pleasure to give an overview of the collective impact and achievements of the Unstereotype Alliance over the last year, how we raised the bar since our last summit, and how we plan to power forward. Listening to the keynote addresses here, though, this morning and considering the road ahead of us, two words keep recurring, and I'm sure we're going to be hearing them often: courage and bravery. These words are in our DNA as an alliance, right back to 2017 when it was formed, and they've never been needed more than they are now. 6.5 years ago, as we've heard, 24 courageous organisations took a bold step and joined together with UN Women. They moved from the sidelines of the SDGs and agreed to work together to change the world through the powerful tools of advertising at their disposal. These founding members decided that there must be a better, more mindful way to sell products and services, to tell stories that resonate and represent all consumers, to engender inclusion by shifting perceptions of how we see each other, to do no harm with their content by eliminating stereotypes and instead using advertising as a force for good. These 24 founding members left competition at the door. Brave. But this was in order to better society as a whole, and specifically for women and girls. They coalesced and agreed with the 1995 Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, which recommended, among other things, that addressing harmful stereotypes in media and creative content was central to achieving gender equality. And so this alliance was born, out of the courage and resolve of its members to do something about the issue of harmful stereotypes, powered by collective action. At the time, of course, there were many unknowns. There was no secretariat at UN Women to speak of, no research, no metrics, just 24 willing organisations with a vision, consensus and courage. And here we are today, 6.5 years later, and those 24 organisations have multiplied ninefold to 240 members, with a network of 12 dynamic national chapters across 5 continents, a combined annual ad spend of $610 billion, and enormous reach into homes in every corner of the globe, connecting billions of people in countless communities around the world. That is the power of this collective. We have the opportunity and influence to drive change in our communities through the progressive portrayal of all people, which in turn drives positive social norms. It's the power we have to shift culture for gender equality, empowering women and girls and people of all genders, because we all sit somewhere on the spectrum, in all our diversity, whether that be our race, class, age, ability, ethnicity, sexuality, language, or education. This morning we heard about the multiple crises and the threats that are standing in the way of us achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Alongside these urgent threats, we also heard about the opportunities for us to band together, embracing collective action, particularly through private sector leaders, actors and collectives, is one of the best opportunities we have for driving positive social change. The Unstereotype Alliance is an excellent example of such a collective, and I'm proud to stand here today as head of the Secretariat at UN Women, alongside members and allies from over 16 countries, all united here with a desire to create change. It's heartening to see as much as it is inspiring, and given the myriad of cultural and corporate complexities impacting business today, it's courageous of our members to continue to fight for equality as a priority. We are on the right side of this story, and we're on the right side of history. The theme of this year's summit celebrates what we can achieve together and recognises that we have significant and pressing challenges to overcome, perhaps the most intense challenges we've faced together since the Alliance was formed. At our last member summit in November 2022, we collectively committed to raising the bar, and we've done just that. We strategised, shared best practice, discussed how and where we need to have an impact, and those commitments translated into action. Over the next 2 days, we will unveil several new tools, frameworks, and pieces of research that were first discussed here at UN headquarters in 2022, including the new exhibit from Getty Images that you may have seen in the lobby downstairs. Do have a look on your way out. When we hold ourselves accountable for creating impact, momentum is important, but action is essential. It's sometimes suggested that we're trying to tackle too much. I would suggest that in this present day, we can't risk not doing enough. I'd like to briefly give you an idea of the achievements of the last year and how we've walked our talk in terms of raising the bar as an alliance. Data has always been the foundation of our work, and we measure what matters, including what we need to do better. In 2019, we worked with Kantar to launch the gender unstereotype metric to evaluate female and male characters in ad content and identify gender-based stereotypes. The metric has since measured 22,000 ads across 72 countries for progressive portrayals of gender. Last year alone, progressive portrayals of women increased by 2 percentage points, and positive portrayals of men increased by 4 percentage points. Unstereotype Alliance members consistently outperform non-members in producing unstereotyped content and progressive portrayals of gender. Markets where the Alliance is present actually perform better on a range of elements, including 50% of screen time given to females with more speaking roles, females and males depicted in non-traditional roles, and a stronger diversity of ethnic origin, skin colour, and body size. But we're still underperforming in representation of age, race, ethnicity, and disability. So last year, we worked with Kantar to launch the progressive unstereotype metric to formally measure and track these characteristics, including as they each intersect with gender. This is truly how we hold ourselves accountable, to track our progress and to know when we need to do better. It is seen, it makes a difference across underrepresented groups, misrepresented groups, and those who are not represented at all. Data is critical to providing our members with an evidence base for this work, and we do know that often that evidence is required inside the house. This year we're breaking new ground in establishing the business case for progressive marketing. While existing evidence tells us that advertising performance and consumer purchase intent is improved when advertising is diverse and progressive, the business case will show for once and for all how progressive advertising converts into sales across multiple sectors worldwide. Members, you will hear throughout this summit that going woke does not mean going broke, and we'll give you the evidence to prove it. This is set to be an industry-first piece of research, created with our allies Said Business School at Oxford University, Essentials Marketing Effectiveness arm WARC, and with the sales data and unstereotype metric scores of 6 global Unstereotype Alliance members. Another brave move. And we will be so excited to share this work with you at Cannes Lions in June. One of our most important proprietary resources remains the 3Ps framework, which includes an analysis of a character's presence, perspective, and personality when assessing content for stereotypes. At our last summit, members discussed areas where they need more guidance to improve their performance, particularly in the portrayal of healthy masculinities, people who live with a disability, women in sports advertising, older consumers, and diversity in body types. So these are the areas where perpetuating stereotypes or underrepresenting entire communities is continuing to do harm. So a global working group has put together new and nuanced guidance filled with case studies and best practice. And that fantastic work will be launched this afternoon. But we also recognise that unstereotyped content does not live in a vacuum and it doesn't get out into the world by itself. So we started conversations at the last summit around unstereotyping our media planning and buying processes. A task force of media specialists from across the Alliance have worked on creating preliminary guidelines to promote an inclusive media approach, one that focuses more on human safety than brand safety. We're excited that this too will be unveiled tomorrow as a complementary tool to the 3Ps framework. All of our tools, best practice and insights are rolled out around the world, and many are developed by our amazing national chapters. Because stereotypes are culturally driven, we've got to take a nuanced local approach to driving change within the industry and in the work. In 2023, our mandate reached more corners of the industry than ever before in every part of the globe. In the UK, UAE, Turkey, Brazil and India, members have produced excellent knowledge products and research to enhance the industry's insights and understanding of the nuanced stereotypes to confront at a local level. Our national chapters also made great strides in profiling the work of the Unstereotype Alliance at high-level industry events and award shows around the world. From Advertising Week APAC to the Lurie's Creative Week in South Africa, MENA Awards show at Dubai Links and at Cannes Lions, the embedding of the Unstereotype judging criteria has now been successfully implemented across 80% of our chapters. We celebrated powerful youth engagement programs from chapters in Brazil, South Africa and the UAE, all aimed at engaging the next generation of advertisers and to strengthen the professional pipeline. And a new Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Summit in India brought enormous local visibility to our mandate, along with their fantastic You Don't See Me campaign to tackle the persistent gender stereotypes in Indian advertising. This global activity enabled us to achieve a collective impact of 2.92 billion organic or unpaid media impressions, a truly phenomenal accomplishment. And a clear indication that there is a large audience and a hunger for our message and our content worldwide. But without doubt, one of the biggest initiatives that we teased at the last summit and released in 2023 at Cannes was our first global public awareness campaign to mobilise public action against stereotypes. This has always been one of our strategic objectives because we do recognise that shifting social norms one ad campaign at a time is what you might call a slow burn strategy. So we must harness the opportunity of reaching, educating and engaging the billions of consumers that our members serve. Like any good campaign, we started with consumer insights and worked with Ipsos to conduct a survey across Brazil, South Africa, Turkey, USA and the UK to understand what it is that holds people back from speaking up against stereotypes. We found that 3 out of 4 people say they regularly do see stereotyping in action. 50% believe that people don't speak up or they disagree when they see someone using a negative stereotype because they don't want to escalate the situation. And 2 in 5 people believe that others don't speak up or disagree with the perpetrator because they don't know what to say, which highlighted an education gap on how to take a constructive stand. So in response, we launched the Say Nothing, Change Nothing campaign, our first global public awareness campaign. Aimed at adults aged 18 to 30, it was designed to encourage people to be an active upstander against stereotypes. During the break, you will have seen the 3 ad spots that launched the campaign created for us by Ogilvy UK, which was shared around the world and translated into Spanish and Japanese by our national chapters in Argentina and Japan. Our ultimate goal is to encourage conversation and provide tools and resources to safely speak up and take action against stereotypes. We developed a guide, Unstereotype 101, which explains how to safely confront stereotypes and enables people to become upstanders rather than bystanders. And you can find that brilliant guide via the QR code on your screen or on the campaign website designed for us by Craft Worldwide, break-stereotypes.org. Shameless plug. And in the UK, we piloted a workshop for our members to implement the guide across their millions of employees, and all members will receive that training tomorrow afternoon. We wanted to see how the campaign resonated around the world, so we asked some of our members what Say Nothing, Change Nothing meant to them. Let's watch. Just fixing the volume on that.
When we don't face the problem, we become the problem. Say nothing, change nothing.
To sum it up in one word, I would say the campaign is very provocative.
I would definitely pick real.
It's challenging.
Uncomfortable.
Thought-provoking.
I thought that Say Nothing, Change Nothing campaign was great and invites you to reflect and ask yourself whether you've ever been in those situations and whether you've done something to change that situation.
I thought particularly the creative execution was quite arresting. If you engaged in it, I think it really did challenge the way you think, and so it made you consider your behaviour in certain situations and what you might do about it.
Really powerful campaign, got me thinking in both personal and professional setting. It's very applicable, relevant, and it's very action oriented.
I'm like, wow, like you're exactly the same as those people. If you're not saying anything, you might as well be saying those stereotypical things or behaving in that stereotypical way.
It might make you relate to a situation that's happened to yourself or witnessing a similar scenario unfold somewhere else. And I think that kind of helplessness in that situation is where you want to feel empowered to make a change, step up and speak out in the future.
Unless we all sort of take a bit more of a stand and push ourselves and create a situation, an area of comfort around being able to stand up for things and have a perspective and have a point of view, I think we'll never change it.
Don't feel like it's trivial, don't feel like it's simple, don't feel like it's not important, don't feel like it doesn't matter, because it does.
Be the change you want to see in the world, understand the power of your allyship and lead with courage, not fear.
One key takeaway from the Upstander training was about moving beyond allyship to taking a more active role, which is sort of intentional and sensitive.
The framework specifically, the stop, pause, shift or suggest, for me was really key in heightening my understanding of what is best to do in that situation.
I learned how stereotype is formed in our brain, which I didn't know before, and it was all about honest conversations.
It is indeed all about honest conversations, and despite our notable achievements, our mission is not always easy. Across our membership, we don't always get it right, but the important thing is how we course correct when we get it wrong. How do we learn from our collective experiences, and how do we as brands and as an alliance hold each other accountable to walk our talk? In 2020, following the murder of George Floyd, there was a surge of action across the ad industry, desperately overdue action, and an exponential increase in efforts and pledges to bring much greater diversity, equity, and inclusion to all parts of the advertising ecosystem. The Unstereotype Alliance released an open letter to the industry in partnership with the World Federation of Advertisers, another of our founding members, commending the industry for its commitment to the issue, imploring Adland not to waste its privileged position and make real change, and promising to help track and measure the progress made. And we have. Since 2021, the Unstereotype Alliance has released its annual... I've lost track of my slides. Has released its annual State of the Industry report at each summit, which examines how the industry is performing through the lens of our strategic framework. That is, fostering equality in the workplace, achieving unstereotyped advertising content, and mobilising public action against stereotypes. Today we launch the 3rd edition of that report, and you'll find it via the QR code on the screen. This year's report finds that there have been some strong, consistent and strengthened efforts from across the Unstereotype Alliance membership. We celebrate that, and I strongly encourage you to take a read and examine the myriad of pathways to progress. There is still a great deal to be done, much of which we still discuss and strategize around over the course of this summit. For example, within the industry, both agency and client side, the representation of women has increased, but they need to occupy more space at leadership tables, and intersectionality is still lacking. Globally, representation of non-binary people, people living with a disability, members of the LGBTIQ+ community, and older adults, particularly women over 40, are all underrepresented in the industry. And as we know, who makes the work is who shows up in the work. Ironically, though, there is an urgent need to reframe notions of masculinity in advertising content, which has been a particular focus for us over the last year, following findings in our 2022 Gender Equality Attitudes study on the regressive attitudes of young men towards gender equality. Overall, there are persistent experiences of exclusion in the workplace and in the work, and it's feared that the rapid adoption of generative AI tools will exacerbate this as the new form of exclusion. Arguably, though, a more worrying fundamental concern has been emerging, and that is a backlash against diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives themselves. Now, as the ED said, in society and in the media, this concerning rhetoric is largely the voice of fear, of those who fear that they are losing their grip on power structures that have served them for so long. I'm just going to go back to that slide. However, just as we're starting to see the fruits of what we've been so tirelessly working towards to improve as an industry, we are seeing lack of investment and jobs in diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's slipping backwards. Reports show that in some cases, budgets have been slashed for external DEI groups by as much as 90% in 2023. This is shocking, and we simply cannot afford for this to happen, and nor can you. 67% of consumers trust brands that make honest claims about their social initiatives and act with society's best interests at heart. Consumers also indicate that they are likely to buy from a brand that includes diversity in its advertising. 63% of consumers said they'd be more likely to buy from brands making an effort to represent people like them, and 60% believe that brands that do not deliver on inclusion will become irrelevant. Despite this, it is evident that many brands are shying away from embracing DEI, given growing fears of criticism and getting it wrong. We will be tackling this head-on throughout this summit. We understand the fear and the concerns, the very public fallout or the backlash in the face of progressive marketing, but that should not result in inaction. It simply calls for even greater courage and bravery. And understand, bravery is not born from a brief. It must come from inside the house. The theme of this summit celebrates what we can achieve together and recognises that we have significant and pressing challenges to overcome. Acknowledging and mitigating these risks and pushing past the pushback is of utmost importance. We must always keep the positive transformation of social norms through the power of advertising as our North Star. I say with confidence that the Unstereotype Alliance cannot be perturbed. We stand proud of our collective action. And as we approach the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals deadline, it is more important than ever that we deliver on our shared mandate with bravery and courage. Those two words, regardless of criticism or fears of backlash, knowing that when we power forward together, great change happens. Thank you. Now, speaking of brand bravery, I don't think we could find a better example than the subject of our next conversation, and few could dispute that it did indeed pay off. It's also an exemplary example of how our 3 Ps, presence, perspective, and personality, can elevate and transcend storytelling. It's an example of how braving backlash turned a little movie about dolls into a cultural juggernaut. If there was ever a question mark around the relevance or market for female stories told from female perspectives, I like to call this the billion-dollar proof point that the answer is yes. Ladies and gentlemen, to talk to you about the Barbie movie and conversation with Jess Weiner, please welcome the EVP and Chief Brand Officer of Mattel, Lisa McKnight.
Hi, Lisa.
Hello, Jess. Hi, everybody.
I feel like this is a conversation 14 years in the making.
Oh,
so
my
full
gosh.
Disclosure, Barbie and Mattel have been partners of mine for the last 14 years. And I don't think we've ever had a chance to have this kind of conversation amongst peers and colleagues before.
I know. This is a big moment.
So I'm so excited. I want to dig right in because I'm sure as the Mattel team and you are sitting there and absorbing, and by the way, congratulations on becoming our latest member of the Unstereotype Alliance.
Absolutely
So
thrilled.
very happy.
Thrilled. So thrilled to be here. So excited about the membership. I am here with my amazing Mattel colleagues. It's already been such an informative morning and so inspiring.
So I wanted to start, if we can go in the way back machine, to 14 years ago, roughly, when you and I first met. And we've had lots of those. When June and I were talking about the closed-door conversations, I was thinking about this conversation. So I want to go back to the moment where there was a lot of conversation within the Barbie brand at the time around the need for what we were calling at the time a corporate sacrifice. There's something needed to be done to shake up the relationship that we had with our consuming audience at the time. So I want us just to go back to that moment. Some of the insights that we talked about was like Barbie at the time was failing what we were calling the birthday party test. Just parents weren't feeling like she was the right, at the time, emblematic gift that they wanted to give, which was not what we wanted to hear. So take us back to that moment and what was happening for the brand at the time and kind of the early beginning days of our inclusivity journey.
Yes, happy to. So, yes, to go back in time, almost 14 years ago, the brand was in a very different state. Not only were our sales down dramatically, which is always a wake-up call, but, we started to do some deeper research and having more meaningful conversations with parents in particular. And the playback was not good. As Jess mentioned, one of the biggest indications that the brand was in trouble was when parents were saying they didn't feel good about giving Barbie as a gift to friends of their children's at birthday parties, and they didn't want an association with the brand, but they all admitted that many of the women had grown up playing with Barbie. What we saw was Barbie, and you're looking at this image right now, had a very sort of singular take on beauty back in the day, and was also arguably, too perfect. And the world was evolving at a rapid pace, and we were not keeping up. We were resistant to change, and we knew that Barbie was inspiring. We knew the origin story, female founder, etc. But we weren't communicating that story, and we weren't serving up the brand that we knew and loved so well. Kids also, more and more, were not seeing themselves in the product expression. So we had a lot of work to do. The first thing we did was we recommitted to the brand purpose, to the origin of Barbie, which is to inspire the limitless potential in every girl. And we started to communicate and message around that, and that started to get some traction. But then quickly we knew we had to evolve the product itself and the doll line and make the doll reflective of the world that kids were seeing around them. The majority of the population in the U.S. today is diverse, and kids, 75% of kids, have friends from different races with different backgrounds and identities than themselves. And we had to create a more inclusive expression of product. So again, through a lot of work, I'm going to make it sound very easy, but through a lot of work led by our amazing Chief Design Officer, Kim Clemoni, we reappraised the doll line. We introduced more skin tones, more hair fiber, hair textures, hairstyles, and rapidly diversified the line. But then, the biggest challenge of all, which Jess worked very closely with us on, was acknowledging her body. Again, and that certainly played into that perception of perfection and unrealistic beauty. We had to evolve her body. Why that was risky for us is because we've created an entire system of play and product around a body type. So think about the implication to the fashions, the accessories. If we created different body types, would Barbie fit in every car, vehicle? The dream house, her wheelchair, like everything had to be looked at to support a diverse range of body types. But the team went for it. And it was a big investment corporately from a manufacturing standpoint. We added complexity to, our supply chain. But the team went for it, and, certainly it's paid off.
It definitely has paid off, and I was going to go back. I know in a little while we're going to hear from the amazing Rachel Lowenstein about girlhood, which I can't wait for, to connect all of these dots in the room. The thing that was happening for us with girlhood and parenthood at the time was a lot of millennial parents were looking at signifiers of their status and culture, caring about gender equity and representation, and wanting to align with brands that were representative of that. And the body kept coming up as the number one obstacle, let's say, of seeing kids in play. And when June and I were talking about that yes and approach, we talked about that a lot inside at Mattel. Like, yes, mothers would say to us and parents would say to us, yes, my daughter loves pink and she wants to be president. And both of those things can be true. So that additive nature was really important. And that brand sacrifice around looking at her body and challenging how Barbie can grow and evolve certainly paid off. And we saw that pay off in the biggest sense of the word with the film. So I want to kind of dive into that. It also, landed us on the cover of Time magazine, super cash. And I think, but I truly, as we were listening to the opening conversations today, and I was thinking about us, would we have ever at that time imagined we'd be able to tell the Barbie story inside of the UN?
No. And again, we are so thrilled to be invited and to now be official members of this amazing organization. But what I will say about the cover of Time, too, why it was so powerful was because it got us to start having the bigger conversation, which we'll get to in a minute around the movie, but it allowed us to stop talking about Barbie the form factor and what Barbie is, but what Barbie inspires. And that was a big unlocker for us.
I'm just curious in this room, raise your hand if anybody has their own personal Barbie story. Right? Like either who was like loved playing with them as a kid, and then also raise your hand if you were not allowed to play with them. Okay, yep. See? Barbies for all, baby. We got you covered now. Okay. So, this is it's a personal connection point, right? The incredible world awareness and brand awareness for Barbie is magnificent. So I want to talk about, you talked about the brand took the risk, and you're right. It was a collective of conversations, as I remember, a lot of important conversations around how you brave the backlash, which is what we're going to talk about at the summit, how we make those important corporate sacrifices, how we look to not just match culture, but to be leading edge in culture and to be reflective there. So let's talk about the movie because, and this transition into the movie, because as you were progressing inclusivity over this past decade in particular, it's more than just the body that has changed. We'll show you in a moment a beautiful representation of what the line looks like now. But to really ground in the work internally, you developed the Mattel Playbook. And I think that's really important to start at. There's 4 pillars of the playbook, but maybe we can start and have you talk a little bit about brand purpose and how that evolution changed and grounded you in a brand purpose that then brought us to the film that we know and love.
Yes, the Mattel Playbook we like to call is our secret weapon, and it is our approach to brand management, and it's what we've been using over the past 10 years to reinvigorate our entire portfolio, beginning with Barbie. So brand purpose, as we know, is all about the intrinsic value of the brand, why your brand matters. And when you tap into the purpose and the meaning behind the brand, it allows you to foster a deeper connection with your consumers. So I talked about Barbie's purpose to inspire the limitless potential in every girl. Hot Wheels is all about igniting the challenger spirit in every kid. Fisher-Price is about giving new families and their kids the best possible start in life. And when you tap into that deeper meaning, you can create a stronger connection. So that's been incredibly powerful for us. Design-led innovation, we take great pride in. It's all about innovating, keeping one step ahead of what consumers are expecting, then meeting those expectations and exceeding them with incredibly innovative breakthrough product. And again, the work we've done to transform Barbie, the doll, her play sets is a great example of that. Cultural relevance, connecting to culture, reflecting the world that people are seeing around them. Striking conversation has been really powerful for us. And again, the Barbie movie is the best example of that. And then executional excellence, it sounds easy to say, harder to do. We do take pride in making sure we take some of these incredible ideas that our team comes up with every day, but executes them, gets them to market on a global scale.
One of the things I was thinking about as we were sitting here is that this really has served the suite of brands, and starting with Barbie as the North Star, the place to go back to when we waver or when we have a question or when we're being challenged, right? And I think in the work that we do in advising brands is we talk a lot about avoiding SFSN. It sounds fabulous. It signifies nothing. And we often do that when we just do the check the box kind of approach, right? And we do it because we think it's supposed to be done or it's a one-off. But this has really now been absorbed in the DNA.
Absolutely.
Across
the portfolio, yeah.
And so, I'm curious because I remember even early days connected to the brand, the talk of making a feature film of Barbie had been in development for quite some time, right? This is just a small example of the expanded line of what Barbie looks like now. So if you didn't know, now you know. It's really remarkable, and it keeps expanding and evolving, and probably the most endearing part of being a partner to the brand is watching the faces of parents and kids light up when they see themselves, their friends, their aunties, their family members all represented now. But I want to talk about the movie a bit because it was in development for a while, and I'm curious, at what stage, if you can share this with us, at what stage do you all go, okay, yes, now is the time to do the movie? Was it because it was the time? Was it the right people? Like, what brings us to the decision to finally bring this film to life?
Yes, so much to say on this topic. But Jess is absolutely correct. The idea of a Barbie movie has been in the hallways of Mattel for 20 plus years. And, we've been pitched many concepts over time. And I honestly don't believe we would have gotten to this place and had the opportunity to work with the incredible filmmakers, Greta Gerwig as a storyteller and director, Margot Robbie as a producer, and of course a lead actress. If we hadn't done the work that we had started over 14 years ago on the brand, today Barbie is the most diverse doll line in the world, and we are showing up as a beacon of female empowerment, and that attracted that caliber of talent. At the same time, because you've got a brand with 65 years of legacy, everyone's got a perspective on Barbie. You all have a perspective. And we wanted to make sure that we told a story that was unexpected. And so that was the pitch that Margot gave to us first over 6 years ago. She didn't know what the story was going to be, but she knew it needed to be disruptive and unexpected. And that got us really excited.
And a little nervous?
Wildly nervous. Because also, we were doing well. Like I mentioned how we had a low point financially. I mean, the brand was turning, momentum was real, and there were many days where we said, why, do we really need this? What's the upside? Yeah. There was sort of a question because we were doing so well.
I mean, I can imagine. Yeah. Again, this goes to what Sarah was talking about in that bravery and courage and curiosity, especially when you steward a brand like Barbie, and you're really sort of responsible for her next evolution. So many questions about this movie, and I'm sure you've been asked some of these, but for the pleasure of this room, as somebody leading the brand, what did you learn most from making this film?
I mean, so many experiences and learning opportunities. The first was, no one could have prepared us for the scope, scale, complexity of this project. Working with these incredible filmmakers that pushed us out of our comfort zone, working with Warner Brothers and their marketing team. I've used the expression oftentimes on Barbie that it takes a village to run this brand. In this instance, it took a large metro area. I mean, we worked with a vast group of team members at Mattel, across functions around the globe. We worked with amazing partners like Jess, to consult and help us pressure test some of these ideas. But, we wanted to collaborate with these incredible storytellers, but there were times where they had a perspective that they wanted to push. There were things that we needed to do to create, in good storytelling, a little tension, a little drama. I was really struggling with the takedown on Barbie in the middle school by Sasha, played by Ariana Greenblatt, because I said, why are we putting this out there? Why are we going back to this dated view of Barbie and perpetuating this negative stereotype?
Right.
But the perception is real, and many people, and some of you probably in this room still have that view on Barbie. So we had to put it out there and own it and be a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah. And again, to me, demonstrative of the courage it takes to both preserve and protect the brand and also know how to play in culture with the conversations that were going to happen. But I'm thinking about Margot coming to you and many years ago even and just saying, okay, we want this to be an unexpected take. But what was important for you as a brand leader to make sure stayed in the film and was included in the film from a DNA and legacy perspective?
Well, we absolutely wanted to make sure that a couple of things. I mean, first we wanted to make sure that the lead Barbie character was a strong female protagonist that went on a journey of self-discovery. Mm-hmm. And certainly Margot Barbie did that. However, let's face it, when we knew Margot was going to play Barbie, there was a conversation. We were concerned about playing into the stereotype. We then realized we could embrace that and be self-aware. And in fact, as we were working on what that character's name was, because as we know, there are many Barbies, President Barbie we're looking at right now in the movie, we didn't know what to call her. And we had a really interesting conversation with Greta Gerwig, with Margot. Is she OG Barbie? Is she classic Barbie? And then we said, let's just own it. She's stereotypical Barbie. But let's make sure that the world that she's in and is reflective of the brand today, which is the most diverse doll line in the world. And the world is diverse and inclusive. But there was a interesting dialogue there.
How much dialogue was there about the portrayal of our Mattel CEO in that film? I'm assuming most of y'all have seen that. If not, I think now it's streaming, so no more excuses. But I am curious about that kind of conversation as well, both the brand and then also corporately. That played a huge part in the tension within the film.
That absolutely did. And again, from reading, words on a page where I was a little like, has Anon read this yet? Our CEO. To then finding out Will Ferrell is playing the CEO, then it was like, whew, okay. Now we know that, again, we're in on the joke. We are, again, giving some creative license, of course, to, Greta, who's an amazing storyteller. She co-wrote the screenplay also with her partner, Noam Baumbach, but wanted them to have the fun and the freedom with this and to push the patriarchal conversation, but served up, with someone like a Will Ferrell, made us all comfortable, and again, in on the joke.
So I'm curious a little bit, when the movie, there was a big build-up to the movie launch, and lots of people are talking about your brand. At certain points, everybody is talking about the brand. How did you prepare for internally, maybe with your teams, or even within yourself as a leader, when you were going to be able to acquiesce to cultural conversations, and then when you needed to kind of get in and sort of wrestle with them? Because there's a tremendous amount of control turned over, as you mentioned, all of the partners, and we'll get into some of the marketing partners, but just the partners of creating this product, and then having the world begin to talk about it and respond to it. There's a lot not in your control anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was definitely part of this discomfort, of not being completely in control. And yet, what we learned, now that we're on the other side of it, is, wow, when your consumers become fans and take over the brand, it can be a really powerful thing. So the outcome was fantastic. But yes, during the process, tons of communication, interdepartment communication, constantly gut checking, decisions that were being made, figuring out where to put up the scaffoldings and the hard sort of guardrails, and then where to be more flexible. And as we got into it, what we did start to appreciate was our foundation was strong. And we did have good scaffolding around the brand. And every time we were kind of bracing ourselves for, a different reaction to than what we had attended, it was always better than we thought. Yes. Society was with us. Society was cheering for the brand because we had done the work.
I mean, I remember when we were in the war room, as we called it, right, preparing for the first launch of the Change of Bodies in 2016, before we knew what the cover of Time was going to look like. And we were all preparing, like many of you do, before a big campaign. Okay, how are we going to respond when we get skewered, and how are we going to respond to the negativity? And even then, we saw the turn from people who said, yes, you got this, I want more. We were so worried we were going to be late to the party. They were just happy we showed up at the party. Right? And I think that's the power to remember in our brands as well. We're all running our individual brand journeys in that way. And no one's really keeping linear score. We think they are, but a lot of folks are not. So I want to talk about the marketing masterclass of launching this film, because you had over, I think, 150 partnerships.
Actually, I think, and Amy is right here, I think 165.
Amy, 165.
Maybe even higher. I mean, just incredible amount of partnerships.
So let's talk about that, because we just talked about, okay, you've now turned over creative control to a degree to filmmakers and to a studio, and now you've got this marketing machine picking up, and you bring in all of these partners. So how do you begin to navigate that part of the cultural moment? Like, what are the conversations that go on for you internally?
Well, I mean, we definitely had, our vision board, if you will, which was, complete pink dominance, cultural phenomenon, right, and the world's largest play date. I mean, those were all expressions we used. We wanted the world to celebrate with Barbie last summer. And so as we worked with all these partners, we absolutely have filtering mechanisms. We want to work with partners that share our values, that are sometimes maybe female-founded, and are purpose-driven, and so that was sort of filter number one. We also, though, wanted to have fun and do things unexpected and just show up in pop culture. Not only were the products that we created important, we had, over 500,000 retail doors that activated the program. And then, we also took that same approach to working on the actual soundtrack of the movie. We wanted it to be the soundtrack of the summer, and we wanted diverse artists, diverse music genre. And again, we thought about everything through those consistent sort of lenses.
Pink domination check, amazing award-winning soundtrack check. And truly, for me, again, as a cultural advisor coming in from the outside in, watching dads, daughters, parents, friends show up in pink to movies on opening day and well after, that kind of fandom often we see in sports teams, as we were talking about earlier. That's sort of a common occurrence. We'll go out and we'll see men often in sports jerseys and think nothing of it. But when I saw men in Barbie shirts with their daughters and their sons taking them to this film, and groups showing up, then I was like, okay, we're getting it. But do you worry, a little bit, when we talk about sitting in this forum of unstereotyping, right? And you have a brand, and we've often said she's a lightning rod for conversation, Barbie. I mean, it's clickbait waiting to happen. Everybody has an opinion about Barbie. Everybody wants to talk about Barbie. And then here you are at this moment with, I believe, and I'm certainly biased, but a complex and nuanced unpacking of the real challenges that women and girls in particular face in the world. Was there ever a moment that you were worried people weren't going to get that fullness, or did you kind of have confidence that as you saw people show up and you saw the rhetoric around the movie, like they were getting all of the layers of where Barbie was living?
Well, I think, again, what was exciting is, from an America Ferrera and the amazing, monologue she delivered in the movie to, again, Greta as a, female protagonist and storyteller, and Margot leading a production company, Lucky Chap, and being one of the few women with a successful production company. We were in good hands. We had advocates for female leadership, female empowerment, that were a good counterbalance to some of the frivolity and fun that the world was having with the movie. So I think we struck a good balance between reinforcing purpose and why Barbie matters, while also letting people have a fun pink summer.
And boy,
everyone needed it, by the way.
We still need it.
Yeah.
But, you are then being talked about alongside Beyonce and Taylor Swift as really saving last summer and the economy and a lot of things in play. So the movie has this tremendous resonance, and it still does. And yet the commitment based on the playbook and all of the other principles that you now embody leading brands across Mattel, deeply committed to continuing the unstereotyping and focus on inclusivity. And for Barbie in particular, something else that we've built together that I'm incredibly proud and want to share with the room a bit, that's an extension, I think, of the purpose, is the Barbie Dream Gap Project. Because, again, in the effort of not being SFSN, really finding and talking about what is the gap for girls in the world. If the mission is to inspire, girls, where is the gap? Where are they not inspired? Where are they running into obstacles? So I want to talk about that with regard to how the Dream Gap addresses lack of representation and lack of role models for girls and the real impact that it has on how they see themselves in the world.
Well, yes, we are incredibly proud of this social mission work that we started in 2018 when we worked with NYU and discovered a study that they were doing that starting at the age of 5, girls started to doubt their capabilities and their confidence in themselves, unlike boys at that age. And so we were questioning, what is this? What is causing this divide or this gap? More recently, because we do talk to girls frequently, through other studies, we've learned that girls now actually are more confident, which I think shows we've all collectively made some progress. But the reality is there are barriers that are preventing them from realizing their true potential. So we've been doing a lot of work, again, over the past 5-6 years to try to close that dream gap, to remove those barriers. We can't do it alone. We are a toy manufacturing and lifestyle entertainment company, so we have been using our brand platform and our global reach to raise money, to go towards amazing like-minded organizations and help them do the work, whether it's Inspiring Girls, whether it's Black Girls Code, Latininas, all sorts of different groups we fund to help them and their good work. We use our brand platform for storytelling. We use our product line to create role model dolls. We create dolls of real amazing women, trailblazers. We also celebrate Barbie and the over 300 careers she's had to inspire girls, and through those programs, I think we've now impacted 25 million girls. And then we're working on some curriculum programs and other ways to, again, give girls these tools and help remove the barriers that are in front of them. So lots of work still to do, but really proud of this mission work.
So proud of it, and looking at it in reverse and coming to this moment now and having this moment to share with you. So incredibly proud to be on this journey together. And let's talk about what comes next for you in overseeing brands across Mattel. I want to talk a little bit about where the company has a more comprehensive commitment to unstereotyping, making that a priority, and why that's so important for you as you evolve the brand portfolio.
Yes, unstereotyping is critical to our success, and purpose-driven brands is something that we take great pride in at Mattel. I've talked a lot about Barbie, but again, to share some other examples of how we're showing more representation in our product line, we introduced Uno Braille a few years ago. We have a Barbie doll with Down syndrome. We created a character in Thomas the Train's content with autism. Little People now is incredibly diverse in its Fisher-Price product offering. So we're constantly thinking about how we show up in product, how we show up in storytelling, and our marketing and communication programs to ensure that the representation's there, that we're inclusive, and that we're addressing these negative stereotypes that are out there.
It's interesting as I think about all of us sitting in the room today, and you're probably thinking about your own roles and your own companies and your own relationships with brands and clients, recognizing that there is a place in which we work to make the systemic change within brands at various parts of our success journey and financial success journey as well. But as we talk about braving the backlash, I think a lot of this conversation today will also be around how do we steady for the future? How, when a brand has made a huge turnaround, do we stay committed to that and not put our foot off the gas? So I am certain that there will be more delicious closed-door conversations about courage and bravery and unstereotyping together, but truly, Lisa and entire Barbie brand team and Mattel team, I'm so happy that we got to share a little bit of this today with this group from the Unstereotype Alliance. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you, everyone. Such a pleasure.
Thank you, Lisa, so much for sharing that with us. That is all the excuse I need to watch the Barbie movie again this weekend through a fresh lens. I have to say that over the last year, every interview I gave, every podcast I was asked to record, every comment I was asked to make, they asked me about the Barbie movie. They asked me, what do you think about, but it was always about Ken. It was always, what do you think about the Kenergy? I'm like, he just needs to accept that he is Kenuff. But it was amazing how, right-wing media went into meltdown, all about Ken. It was like, can we talk about the fact that this was like a basic feminist manifesto through the power of storytelling? It put the word patriarchy in the mouths of young girls who'd never even heard it before, and suddenly it was, scoring as a Google search word. I mean, this was incredible. It was telling female stories from female perspectives and making, shall we say it again, over $1 billion. But they wanted to talk about Ken. So, like we said, our work is not done, but my gosh, many would say the Barbie movie captured the zeitgeist. Others would say that Barbie blew the zeitgeist up, and I'm in that camp. So congratulations once again, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. Like we said, the Barbie movie was produced, directed, co-written, and starred women, and our next speaker will posit that the Barbie movie taps into the emerging cultural phenomenon of girlhood. In our final presentation of this open plenary, our great friend Rachel Lowenstein, pretty in pink over there, will examine a shift alongside ideological lines towards femme creativity. As we observe the global ripple effect of seismic proportions and economic impact of Barbie, Beyonce, and Taylor, what does a future where girlhood becomes the centre of the cultural universe mean for society, brands, and people? Here to tell us is our good friend Rachel Lowenstein.
In media and tech for social good, and I am so honored and grateful and kind of giddy to be here today to talk to you about girlhood. Now, before we get into the talk, I first have to ask you a question, and the question is, do you know the rules of the internet? I'm going to assume that y'all don't because you're decent human beings, and it's for good reason. The rules of the internet were a guide for web etiquette, first appearing on 4chan's Random forum. Random was where very early memes were born. It's also where the hacktivist group Anonymous came from. Hence, here's the rules if you would like to read them, but don't look too close because they're terrible. Hence Rule 3, which is we are anonymous. So clearly this board had influence in culture, right? You've probably heard of Rule 34. If it exists, there's pornography of it. But what you haven't heard of, I'm sure, is my favorite rule, which is Rule 30. There are no girls on the internet. Now, opinions vary on what the meaning of Rule 30 was. Some people say it was innocuous and merely suggesting that early web experiences are mostly designed for men. Other people who are definitely being more honest say that it was expressing resentment from men on how women use their gender in the real world and that gender should not matter in the so-called egalitarian nature of the web. But I think the most telling reason for Rule 30 was that a default of a faceless, nameless avatar in cyberspace defaulted to that of men because culture's default setting is and was that for men. And given that the earliest internet ads literally had messages like, you can use the internet for doing your taxes and checking sports scores and discussing those sports scores with other guys and talking about what all men apparently secretly discuss, which is Egyptian literature. Indeed, perhaps, this is a real ad, by the way. Indeed, perhaps it is true that the early web was not designed for women. Because if there's one constant in culture across ideological lines and geographical lines, it's the devaluation of femme creativity. For example, it's why most of the world's cooking is done by women, but most of the world's chefs are men. It's also why VC funding for women's projects has gone from dismal to destitute. Since 2017, there's been a year-on-year decline in the investment in women's startups, which is kind of weird because women's startups generate 2 times more ROI than ones founded by men. And if you dive into these numbers for women of color, the numbers are even more depressing. Now, happily, that devaluation in culture is being challenged by what experts are calling, and by experts I do mean the girlies, a season of girlhood. We have Taylor Swift and Beyonce breaking pretty much every record in the music industry, Taylor making the world's first billion-dollar tour. That is me at the Taylor Swift concert, if you look closely. Beyonce causing global rises to inflation by merely announcing the Renaissance tour in Europe. And Barbie, which I don't need to repeat, is a cultural force, the top-grossing Warner Brothers film of all time. But there's also been this unaccounted impact of just the color pink in culture and things like Barbie core on retailer bottom lines. Now, this season of girlhood is a culmination of pockets of culture changing the definition of girl altogether so that it's less of a noun and in many cases now an adjective, as many have observed. We have girl dinner, we have hot girl walk, we have hot girl summer, we have girl math, we have tomato girl summer, and my personal favorite, feral girl fall. The list goes on. And this idea of girl as a descriptor opens up all of the doors of the multiplied expressions of girl rather than the very singular framing of what it means to be a woman. And this idea of girlhood doesn't really have anything to do with gender at all. It's much more cultural. So a term that's historically been used to exclude or marginalize is now being reclaimed to celebrate diverse identities. But I think perhaps most of all, this rise of girlhood as a subculture is a response to the truth that being an empowered girl boss is not going to save you from the fate of being a woman today. Yes, feminism has driven significant social progress, but systemic change has been very hard with legislative policies and ideologies, as my previous speakers have noted, that actively harm women and girls becoming more popular than ever. And despite how oppressive and exclusionary it once was, being a woman used to be very clearly defined. And when you don't have narratives of the future, you look to narratives of the past. Girlhood is maybe a powerful draw and a comfort of the familiar, a time where women were free to play with different identities without having the pressure of just picking one. But very quickly, women and girls are told to relinquish their girl interests, lest they be deemed frivolous or disempowering to themselves. When in the same swing for men, things like escapist media, comic books, video games, they're never labeled as frivolous or disempowering. They're just part of the zeitgeist. So while the relegation of girl interests or the rise of girl culture might be new, this relegation of girl interests as trivial has been happening for millennia, right? Take the Beatles. They were not popular until teenage girls made them cool, but we called teenage girls who loved them hysterical, and men who loved them simply had the good taste. Or more recently, Swifties being labeled for being part of a cult for attending stadium concerts and movie theater experiences, because obviously, cosplaying in your fan gear, building a community around something that you love, and being maybe like cringeworthy emotional about your fandom or your art or your community is totally just exclusive to things that girls like. But like any community for men, girl culture is also a community. It's fandom, it's friendships, it's inside jokes, it transcends generations, and that makes it valuable cultural currency. The boy math joke is my favorite thing in here. Or as Jessica Hopper noted, replace fangirl with expert. Because it was actually teenage girls who concepted the idea of fandom in the first place, and they built fandom into being the social force that it is today on platforms that have been almost universally designed and run by men who've rarely had the interests of women and girls in their business operations. And it was actually women and girls who figured out how to monetize those platforms in the first place. As Taylor Lorenz notes in her book, it was mommy bloggers who first created the idea of influencing by sharing their experiences with postpartum depression. Yet, if the Golden Globes and Greta's snub at the Oscars are any indication, and putting aside the Taylor, Barbie, and Beyonce of it all, things that women create are still actively derided and disappearing from culture. take the media industry. Women's-owned media has shut down at such an alarming rate in the last 3 years that globally it now makes up less than 1% of our paid media investment. Or the fact that we are almost the entirety of the creator economy, but we still earn less than our male counterparts. And now we are being actively erased from the economy that we created to begin with. This is Ayatana. She is an AI influencer whose male technologists created her because they did not want to, quote, work with real people who have egos, manias, or just want to make a lot of money, despite the fact that they make tens of thousands of dollars off of her woman likeness every single month. Which brings me back to Rule 30. There are no girls on the internet. The rise of girl culture as a subculture, I think, is a response to the very uncomfortable truth found in Rule 30, which is that women are both admired in culture and vilified in culture simply for being women. This is a contradictory social truth that we have across the world. Just think of all of the words that we have to articulate dislike for women, usually when they are just expressing their girl culture interests. And the rise of girl culture as a subculture is a response to both of those contradictions, and it says, why would we break the glass ceiling in Ken's Mojo Dojo Casa house when instead we could just architect the Barbie dream house? So bringing all of this together, with the historical devaluation of femme creativity, to girl becoming an adjective, to the expertise found in girl culture, could lead us to a future where girlhood establishes its own cultural universe and shatters the historical restraints that have relegated it as trivial or secondary. And brands being arbiters of culture, we obviously have a very significant role in this. In advertising, we've historically been objectified, and much more recently, thanks to many of you in this room, we have been empowered, told to be strong and courageous and bold. But in that idea, brands and by proxy culture get to remain unexamined, and it's women who have to change. Or as Jane Cunningham noted in her 2021 book that explores this entire topic, brands need to stop telling women how to be and start being in service to them. Because yes, I'm sure many might argue, well, most brands do speak to women, but very few actually invest in them, and their cultures, and their communities, and their interests, and in their fandoms. And yet, our industry is focused remaining entirely on the wrong points. Pundits are disproportionately using terms like the she-economy or the female dollar, and this language implies that women's interests are not being deemed serious enough for true economic consideration. Just take the very infrastructure of media and entertainment, which still largely caters to men's interests. There simply is not the equivalent infrastructure for women at scale. So men's interests simply get the value of having the benefit of being valuable to brands, but women still need to prove just how valuable they are. And Reddit's founder and Mr. Serena Williams knows this very well. It's why he's the leading investor in women's sports today and calls its underinvestment a, quote, legacy of gross business incompetence. Now, earnest investment into girl culture can look like a lot of things. On the more serious end, like many of us have been doing, it's about solving material issues for women and girls in your category. But frankly, it also doesn't have to be that serious. The brands that are part of building this dream house are simply the ones that are listening to the demands of girl culture. I'm sure many of you have seen the case studies coming out from Stanley recently. They used to market in a very gendered tone for men, and they've grown by almost 300% in the last year by keeping the core function of their products the same, but releasing femme colorways, working with a few key influencers in girl spaces. So without the brand ever having to make any ridiculous stereotyped claims that their products are gendered, girl culture did all of the work for them, and thus the Stanley Girl was born. Still, very few brands have the equity or the products to go this alone. I think the ever-evolving trends of the girl internet almost demand that brand-to-brand partnerships become part of your marketing mix. Hunt's Tomatoes, a brand that has maybe not an ounce of equity with the girlies, but U.S. retailer Lisa Says God Does, and together they released a Tomato Girl Summer partnership in 2023 that sold out within minutes. Or Popeyes and DoorDash creating girl dinner menus, not requiring them to actually change their products, but simply updating their media messages. So the rise of girl culture across geographies, fandoms, and communities is a playground for generating brand ideas, maybe for the exact same reason that our industry is so obsessed with generative AI. Girl culture learns and references upon itself, same as generative AI does with data. But there will never be a future where generative AI could concept making seemingly ranch the most unhinged moment on the internet last year, or thinking to ask men how often they think about the Roman Empire. And try as they might, the NFL did not make 61% more women tune in to watch a game with better data or better AI. Taylor, as benevolent as she is putting niche brands like the NFL on the map, and the NFL is not shying away from this. They've made investing in girl culture their entire personality, and it's paying them in dividends. But it's AI and not girl culture that every marketer is obsessed with figuring out, how will this affect my business? So is AI easier to understand than girl culture? Or do we just value girlhood so little? And you can say this about any subculture, not just girl culture. Even the most advanced AI is still really bad at understanding identity-based nuance. So for that reason, in this future, girl culture could be a shield to the threat of AI on creativity because of how it remixes itself in a way that could never be predictable. Second, unfortunately, the resentment found in alt-right spaces like the manosphere will probably continue to intensify even further, with women and girls going their own way in culture and society outside of the mainstream. Certainly something for all of us in this room to tackle. Next, we're already starting to see that digital campfires are really the dominant spaces for women and girls online. I think that's going to fragment even further because of the underinvestment into women-owned platforms, which frankly is an opportunity for brands. And then finally, brands begin to mimic girl culture as the greatest experts of modern marketing. Meaning, what if not the future of marketing is to be found in not just investing in girl culture, but actually acting like the women who created it? First, for brands, it's no longer sufficient to just have customers to grow. You need communities, you need fans, and communities are built from a shared identity of things that you love. And that shared identity is balanced with an emphasis on plurality. In the Swiftum alone, there's Black Swifties, there's Gaylors, there's Hetlers. Taylor's largest fan base is actually in Jakarta. So the future of marketing hinges on brands remixing themselves to cater to the diversity of people while keeping their core community intact. A future where we have no prescriptive ideals, not telling people how to be, what they need, actively investing in communities rather than just blasting messages at them. And that community is about being almost annoyingly excited about something. To survive, brands need people who are going to obsess over every commercial, social, and cultural articulation of their image. And the very best marketing is simple. It gets you excited. And nobody gets more excited about something that they love than the girls. And those 4 tenets of girl culture are exactly what brands need to do today to unlock this potential future. First, for community and shared identity, identify those communities online that are most valuable to your brand and use brand partnerships to reach those girl groups. Second, for plurality, toss out this idea in many cases of a woman's targeted campaign and instead adopt the plurality of girl to be more relevant and authentic in your marketing. Not having prescriptive ideals, I think when we think about mass reach marketing, most of it actually defaults and biases towards male-driven cultures. We need to be auditing for that, and instead of just throwing that out, supplement it by intentionally investing into women-created culture. And then finally, don't shy away from emotion and excitement found in girl culture spaces and embrace it as a way to iterate your brand. And one very final and brief thought, rather than chasing the latest digital fad and building expensive strategies around it in your marketing, perhaps instead it might be more wise to instead first ask yourself if your brand just needs to better understand women first. And my friends, that is my time. Thank you so much.
Oh, we knew you'd like it. Rachel, thank you so much. That is going to spark so much conversation over lunch and beyond, and I hope it provokes some serious thinking about where you're investing and how to leverage the economic impact of a whisper that is clearly becoming a roar and not before time. Colleagues, we have now reached the end of our open plenary agenda. So it gives me great pleasure to invite Aldiana Cicic, the Chief of Private Sector Partnerships at UN Women, to give a few closing remarks on behalf of UN Women, and then we'll be back to Jess to close out. Aldiana.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. This is so not fair that I'm speaking now. I mean, match that. And also, I'm in between you and your lunch, so I'm definitely the most unpopular person in this room right now. But I promise you to be very brief and to, try to send you off to your lunch. But first, I really want to say Happy Valentine's Day to all of you who are celebrating it today. I don't know why, but I think Valentine's Day should be every day, but it is today. So happy anyway. In all seriousness, I promise to be really brief and just offer a few reflections. And sorry, I'm going to change everything that is here. So you know that. But I just wanted to repeat something that June said. She said, I use dreams as inspiration. And I think that, with all of the amazing things that I've heard today, that is going to stay with me for a long, long time as my inspiration. Because things are hard. Yeah? We've heard that 24 very courageous organizations in 2017 started this whole thing. Yeah? That was a hard time. Yeah? That was not easy times. We had a lot of backlash there. And they agreed to leverage all of their work, their considerable influence, to make a difference, to create a change in the world. And now, to stand with 240, add the 0 to 24, 240 organizations, 12, soon to be 20, dynamic national chapters, and combined advertising power of $610 billion. I mean, please give yourself a round of applause. I cannot be prouder of our work in UN Women with Unstereotype Alliance and all of our partners who have actually stood up and did this for all this time together and kept going when the times are hard. This shows the power of our collective, but also potential of this collective to keep going. Last year, we asked ourselves to raise the bar. And this way, we want to go even further. We want to power forward. We want to push those boundaries. We are at a crossroad moment. You've seen, I don't need to tell you anything, you've seen everything today, and you read it in newspapers, you see it by the laws that are changing, you see by the countries that are changing, you see so many things that are affecting, even when you don't see the word gender equality, but they're affecting gender equality. It's, in my own personal and professional opinion, it's a war on women. It's a war on gender equality, and we are seeing it in different shapes, different modalities, different colors, different moments, but it's happening. It's there. So we are back at that very hard moment of 2017 when only 24 organizations were actually dreaming, as per June, being inspired by their dreams, when this wasn't possible. Yeah? But it is possible. We are not going to back down. This is the moment to keep pushing, to do it together. This is our 2.0, in a private sector language, 2.0 moment, Unstereotype Alliance 2.0. I think that's what we use in UN as well. But it is the moment that we are clearly, judging by all I heard this morning, facing with the clarity, conviction, and the dreams. Let's not stop dreaming. For me, I know there are some people in this room, not people, organizations, institutions, that are not members of Unstereotype Alliance yet. It's not optional not to be a member of Unstereotype Alliance. I'm sorry. I'm from Bosnia. We're very straightforward. It's just not optional, because gender equality is not optional. It's a must. So what's the hesitation? That's my question to everybody. When we power forward, ask everybody that question. Is gender equality optional for you? If not, then please do make a statement. And I will close here because you look very hungry. Really, I just want to say thank you to everybody, to all of the keynote speakers, to everybody who contributed to this event. I wish you a really successful summit for the next 2 days. I know this continues. We're going to close the plenary now, an open session. Some discussions will be carried throughout the day, tomorrow, etc. And I know Sarah is going to kill me, but I am going to thank particularly Sarah and Unstereotype Alliance UN Women team. Please give them a round of applause, who have done amazing work. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, team. Please stand up. Unstereotype Alliance team from UN Women, please stand up. Please, 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 please stand up. Come on, don't be shy. Please stand up. So just so you know, this is UN Women Unstereotype Alliance Dreamers team. Thank you.
Told you it'd be awesome. All right, so every time I get to follow Rachel Lowenstein and I hear her speech, I always get to come up with what our new band name is going to be. So afterwards, anyone who wants to join the girl band Feral Girl Fall, that's our new band name. So we'll be meeting upstairs in DDR. This actually will conclude our opening plenary session. I want to really thank everybody today for joining us. For those who are non-members, you can make your way up to the top of the floor here to exit. And if you want to go down to that public lobby area, you'll be able to take selfies, as we mentioned, very important selfies. And for members who are going to lunch now, we know y'all are a little dehydrated down here and there's not some water. There's going to be water for you upstairs, so fear not. And for all of our members, we're going to meet back here at 2 o'clock. The work continues. This was just the appetizer. So go eat, enjoy the rest of your day if you're not joining us, and we'll see you back here at 2 p.m.